Welcome to the Fearful Fright series, where we will be reading with our favorite green ghoul, Grimmer. Now sit back and enjoy this twisted tale. Today our story is called Beneath the Floorboards. The first body went under the floorboards in October. Rain hammered the windows of the old farmhouse while Elias Mercer dragged the corpse across the kitchen tiles. Mud streaked behind the dead man's boots like black paint. Elias stopped twice to catch his breath, staring at the cloudy eyes of the stranger he'd picked up near the highway diner. The man's name had been Travis. At least, Elias thought it was Travis. The dead stopped mattering once they stopped breathing. Elias knelt beside the loose boards near the pantry. The smell of damp wood and rot drifted upward as he pried them open with a crowbar. Beneath the house was a shallow crawlspace barely tall enough for a body. Dirt glistened wet beneath the beams. Perfect. He shoved Travis underneath. Bones cracked softly as the corpse twisted into the cramped darkness. Elias replaced the boards carefully, hammering each nail flush. Then he stood in silence. Nothing. No guilt. No fear. Just the warm satisfaction of a secret buried where nobody would ever find it. Outside, thunder rolled over the fields of rural Kentucky while the farmhouse settled with slow creaks. Elias smiled. Good, he whispered. And for a while, it was. The farmhouse had belonged to Elias's father once. A cruel man with whiskey breath and fists like bricks. Elias had grown up hearing screams in those walls, his mother's mostly. When Elias was 16, his father vanished. Folks in town assumed he ran off drunk somewhere and died in a ditch. Nobody searched very hard. Under the floorboards of the farmhouse, however, Elias's father had remained for 23 years. The first body. The beginning. After that, killing became easier. Truckers. Drifters. Runaways. People no one would miss quickly. Elias learned patience, learned how to smile kindly at gas stations and diners. Learned how to speak softly enough that frightened people trusted him. Then he brought them home. And the floorboards fed. By the winter of 2024, there were 11 bodies beneath the farmhouse. 11. Sometimes Elias lay awake counting them the way other men counted sheep. The sounds began in December. At first, they were tiny. A scrape beneath the kitchen. A knock under the hallway. Wood creaking where no one walked. Old houses made noises. Elias knew that. But the sounds kept coming. One night he woke at 3:17 a.m. to the distinct sound of coughing. Wet. Choking. Right beneath his bedroom floor. Elias sat upright in bed, sweat soaking his shirt. Silence returned. He laughed shakily to himself. Getting old, he muttered. Still, he didn't sleep again. The next week, the smell changed. Rot had always lingered faintly in the farmhouse no matter how much bleach Elias used. But now the odor thickened into something unbearable. Sweet. Heavy. Like meat left in the sun. He tore through the house searching for dead raccoons in the walls. Found nothing. Yet every night the smell worsened. And every night came new sounds. Scratching. Whispering. Movement. Always beneath the floorboards. On January 8, Elias heard Travis speak. He was drinking coffee in the kitchen when a voice drifted upward from below him. You buried me wrong. The mug shattered from Elias's hand. Coffee splashed across the floor. Silence. Then. You broke my jaw. Elias backed away slowly. No, he whispered. No, no. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. The voice sounded exactly like Travis. Not ghostly. Not distorted. Just real. Like a living man trapped beneath the house. Elias grabbed a hammer and ripped the boards open. Darkness stared back at him. The crawlspace remained still. But he smelled fresh blood. Not rot. Blood. Warm copper filled the air. Then 11 voices began whispering at once. Elias slammed the boards shut. Sleep became impossible after that. He started seeing people standing in corners. A woman with half her face caved in. A teenage boy with dirt packed into his mouth. Travis, staring silently from the hallway. Whenever Elias blinked, they vanished. He stopped leaving the farmhouse except for supplies. The town clerk at the grocery store noticed the change immediately. "You all right, Eli?" she asked. Martha Bell frowned at the dark circles under his eyes. "Fine. You look sick." I said I'm fine. He left before she could ask more questions. But as he loaded groceries into his truck, he saw Travis sitting in the passenger seat. Maggots crawled from his mouth. "You can still smell us," Travis whispered. Elias screamed and stumbled backward. Passing shoppers stared. When he looked again, the seat was empty. The authorities first became suspicious after the disappearance of Danny Rourke. Danny was 17. Young. Too connected. Too loved. The entire county searched for him after he vanished hitchhiking home from a basketball game. Sheriff Walter Griggs questioned nearly everyone in town, including Elias. The sheriff sat at Elias's kitchen table while rain tapped the windows. "You ever see Danny?" "Nope." Walter nodded slowly. Then paused. "What's that smell?" Elias froze. The sheriff sniffed again. "Like something dead." "Old pipes," Elias answered quickly. But beneath the floorboards came a sudden thump. Walter looked down. Both men sat perfectly still. Then another thump. Thud. Thud. Like fists pounding weakly beneath the wood. Walter stood. What the hell was that? House settling. Sounded bigger than that. Elias's pulse hammered violently. Then came whispering. Soft. Unmistakable. "Help us." Walter's eyes widened. "You hear that?" "No. You seriously don't hear." A scream exploded beneath the floorboards. Walter jumped backward, knocking over his chair. The scream became dozens of voices crying out together. Then silence. Complete silence. Walter stared at Elias in horror. Elias forced a smile. "Old pipes." The sheriff slowly backed toward the door. "Oh. Come back later." The moment Walter left, Elias locked every door in the farmhouse. Then the laughing began. Underneath him. All night long. 3 days later, snow buried the farmhouse under white drifts. Elias hadn't eaten. Hadn't slept. The dead followed him everywhere now. Travis stood in mirrors. Danny Rourke appeared outside windows with frozen skin and empty eyes. Elias heard crying beneath every step. At sunset, he finally snapped. He grabbed a crowbar and tore up every floorboard in the house. Wood splintered. Nails screamed free. Dust exploded into the air. Elias ripped through the kitchen, hallway, bedroom. And beneath it all. Bodies. Rows and rows of bodies. 11 corpses packed into the dirt like grotesque sleeping bags. But they weren't decomposed anymore. They looked fresh. Eyes open. Skin pale. Watching him. Then all 11 sat up at once. Elias fell backward screaming. Their mouths opened together. "You left us alone." One by one, they crawled from beneath the house. Bones cracking. Limbs twisting unnaturally. Danny dragged half his skull across the dirt toward Elias. Travis smiled with broken teeth. We're cold, they whispered. Elias ran. He bolted into the snowstorm, barefoot and shrieking. The dead followed slowly behind him. Not running. Just walking. Because they knew he couldn't escape. Sheriff Walter Griggs found Elias at dawn wandering down Route 16. Bloody. Half frozen. Completely insane. Elias collapsed onto the road sobbing. They're under the floorboards, he cried. All of them. Oh God, they won't stop talking. Walter exchanged a grim look with his deputy. Who's under the floorboards? The bodies. Elias grabbed Walter's coat desperately. I killed them. I killed them all. Snow blew across the empty highway. Walter slowly radioed for backup. Authorities searched the farmhouse that morning. News spread across Kentucky within hours. Police cars. Crime scene tape. Reporters. Cadaver dogs. The county expected horror. Expected a massacre beneath the floor. But when investigators pried up the boards, they found nothing. No bodies. No blood. No remains. Only dirt. Sheriff Griggs himself crawled beneath the house with a flashlight. Empty. Completely empty. Yet Elias continued screaming. They're right there. He pointed wildly at the crawlspace while deputies restrained him. They're staring at me. But there was nothing there. Nothing at all. The trial lasted 8 days. Psychiatrists declared Elias severely delusional. The prosecution had no bodies. No murder weapons. No forensic evidence. Only Elias's confession. And his madness. Still, the details he described were too specific to ignore. He named victims accurately. Described scars. Clothing. Personal items never released publicly. Enough for the jury. Elias Mercer was convicted of 11 murders. The newspapers called him the floorboard killer. At Blackstone Penitentiary, Elias spent the next year in solitary confinement. Because every night he screamed. Guards heard him begging the dead for forgiveness. He clawed bloody trenches into the concrete floor with his fingernails trying to let them out. Then, on November 14, prison staff found Elias dead in his cell. Heart attack. Eyes bulging wide with terror. Fingernails torn completely off. And beneath the concrete floor of his cell. Investigators later discovered something impossible. Fresh muddy footprints. 11 pairs. Leading in circles around Elias's corpse. But never leading out.